Hey guys, it's Kim, and this is going to be my first video about kind of an introduction to what I call my journey, which is my divorce journey. Some of you, actually many of you, have followed me when I was in what I call my past life before my divorce and my home then. And have followed me for this long, so I really appreciate it. I did get a lot of feedback about putting it just on my regular channel. It'll just be in a playlist, these videos called, I don't know, My Journey or something like that. So, so that you can just follow those if you want. So, just as a background, I was married for 32 years. And many of them were very good years. If you watch some of my videos, he was even part of some of the videos, and he gave me things to craft with and provided me organizational things, and we had two beautiful boys that I am blessed to continue to have a great relationship with. You know, lived out in the country, 5 acres, just, you know, life was pretty good. One of the things that was really difficult throughout our marriage was he was an alcoholic. And I had never been around drinking. I grew up with 2 parents that didn't drink. I think I saw my mom with a glass of wine in her hand one time in my entire life with her. And I was just like, oh my gosh. So, you know, I didn't know the signs. I kind of got some signs from him prior to our getting married. And but, you know, I thought, you know, people get over things. I didn't really understand alcoholism. So that was our biggest challenge, I think, in our marriage. He did finally deal with it, and he did quit. And that was when he retired. And I had hoped and prayed our whole marriage that he would just quit drinking and life would be better. And it just wasn't. It just really wasn't. He did quit, and I was amazed. The kids and I were all amazed because we'd asked him many, many times to quit, and he never did. So for him to just quit, he went to a center that did it behaviorally, wasn't an Al-Anon or Alcoholics Anonymous type thing. It was more aversive therapy. So, you know, he was gone for like a week, and yeah, so he came back, and as far as I know, he never took another drink, but I do believe, I have no way of proving this, that he had turned to something else. So I'm not going to say whether or not for sure, but signs, looking back, I kind of see signs that kind of tell me, okay, something else was happening then. And the first year was great. I will say, if you're living with an alcoholic or a recovering alcoholic, having him recover, okay, great. Different person, you know, that was that was part of our marriage. That was part of our life. I did my thing, he did his. We did a lot together, but a lot separate too, because of the drinking. So, and the aftermath the next day, he wasn't always wanting to go place. So I became a very independent woman, which I guess is good because now I'm really independent. But the journey started 6 years ago, and I do think the 2 years that he quit prior to everything falling apart, that was tough because it was a different person. We got no counseling whatsoever. He didn't get any counseling. The family didn't get it. How to deal with this new person, right? Suddenly he wanted to be, you know, I'd put in a piece of furniture or move something. He'd say, I don't remember you asking me about that. I'm like, excuse me? It was always inside is mine, outside is you, deal with that kind of thing. And suddenly the tables turned. He did retire at the same time. It just was a lot of stuff came at too fast, right? So first year was pretty good. Second year, not good. So what triggered or started our difficulties was this weird little thing where one of my kids ended up deciding to rent their in-laws' house while they moved, and he was going to sell his own home, my son was. Now, in saying that, I do believe something else would have happened. We've all discussed this. I asked the boys if they were okay with me doing this videos, and they said yes. So, but we have discussed that if it hadn't been that thing that happened, something else would have caused our difficulties. So, anyway, so they approached my ex-husband and said, this is what we're doing. And they weren't asking. My son owned a home. I mean, he was working. They weren't depending on us at all. So, and you know, I had my reservations about it, as I've discussed with my son, and it all ended up working out okay. But they left, and it was Thanksgiving, and I'm down in my craft room. I took all my old videos off, but anyway, deleted them. And he came down and he said, I know what happened, and I know, and it's all the in-laws' fault. And he just was like, the look on his face, and from that moment on, he had decided there was like a conspiracy going on, and they were trying to take advantage of our son and all of this stuff. And I was just like, oh my gosh, okay. And I could tell, you know, that something was just not right, the way he reacted to all of this. My kids left the house after telling. It was Thanksgiving. My oldest son and his wife had taken the baby home, which is now Emma, you know, well, she was Emma then too. But anyway, took her home. It was getting late. And then they brought it up about their plan. And he told them he didn't agree with it. And no, they're adults now. They don't want to hear that. I've learned, you know, when you have adult kids, you got to kind of go along with and maybe advise a little bit, but you know. Anyway, they left upset, and he came down and I didn't think it had gone that bad, but anyway, he came down and it was just like a switch. It was the in-laws versus our son. And I was just like, okay, but I had no idea how bad it was going to get. So he ended up, my kids came back, my son came back and talked to him again. It did not go well. He ended up writing a letter to my son that he didn't think he wanted to be with him at Christmas. He did not want to have any conversations with him, that they needed to not communicate anymore. I was like, okay. So one evening, and it's going to be hard for me to keep all this straight because this was 6 years ago. So much happened in this saga, I'm telling you. And I'm not making any of this up. I wished most of this hadn't happened, but it did. Anyway, one evening we're watching TV, and he just started in. And I watched the clock, and I was working at the time, and I had to get up early. And it was like, for 2 hours, he ranted and raved about how this was wrong, that this and that, and going on and on and on. And all I said to him finally is, I finally stopped him, and I said, I'm going to tell you something right now. If you try to come between me and my boys, you're going to lose. It won't. You know, if this causes us to if you think you're no longer going to communicate with our kids, then our marriage won't work. I can't be married to you then. Or something to that. Not those exact words, but, you know, don't come between. My boys have been my life, and still are. And in his head, that was another snap. And I finally said, you know, you've been yelling, literally yelling for 2 hours. He's laying on the couch. I'm sitting I used to have a lazy boy, and we would watch TV, and he just went on and on and on. And I finally said, we've got to stop. And I said, I got to get up in the morning for work. And I went to bed. Well, he got so that he did not, my ex, I'm not going to try not to use his name. Anyway, he would stay up all night and write about things. And he was so upset with the kids and going on and on and on, and things got worse and worse and worse, and I was just upset that he wouldn't talk to his son. My oldest called and came over and talked to him, my ex, about, he gave Brian this letter that he had written and hadn't sent yet to our youngest, Eric. And he said, "What do you think?" And Brian said, "This is not good, Dad. Nothing good is going to come from this. Why would you do this at this point? I mean, to say you're not going to see him at Christmas and you can't talk to him anymore." He goes, "Little smaller things than this have divided families." Well, little did we know that our family would become so divided over this. And he goes, "Well, I don't care. I'm still sending it. I'm sending him a letter. He has to know how I feel. I am the dad." And so he sent it. And that was the beginning of the end of our family as we knew it. Of course, Eric, my youngest, couldn't believe that his dad, over him renting a house, would write him off. That's it. We're done. And I really think that as an ex-alcoholic, he had missed out on a lot of things, right? So he was there, present, but he wasn't always mentally there. And I think he felt like he was suddenly in charge and trying to make up for the time he wasn't. And it didn't work that way. I mean, they're now adults. So my son, I talked to him, Eric, and he was in tears. I mean, this was his dad that was going to write him off over that. I was worried about the decision to rent and sell his home. I said, "You get out of the market, blah, blah, blah." Well, what happened was, eventually, Brian and I, poor Brian, he and I really worked on trying to kind of talk to, and my daughter-in-law talked to them about it, and they called, and my son called and said, "Guess what? We've decided to rent," and this was my suggestion, just saying, "why don't you rent your home out to someone while you rent this other house, and that way you can see if this is really what you want to do." And so he called, and he said, "I'm going to take your advice. That's a great idea, and we're going to rent our home out and not sell it." So I thought, oh, here we go. Problem solved. I mean, it'd been like 3 weeks of pure torture. We're working up to Christmas time, right? And I hang up the phone and I tell my ex-husband, "Good news, they're not selling the house. They're going to rent it to someone else." Nope. That still wasn't okay, because in his mind, this was all a conspiracy to take advantage of our son. So that is how this whole thing started, is over our son renting his in-laws' home. And Carl even went, I don't want to use his name. He even went to counseling about it. And even his counselor, I went one time and he said, "This isn't worth losing your family over." He said, "It's not like he's living under a bridge and doing drugs. You should think about this. Is this really what you want? To lose your child over him renting? I mean, why? What, you need to just go over there, say you're sorry, and then stop talking." I could tell he was tired of him too. And it really agitated my ex-husband that I would not agree with him. I would not agree that this was worth what he was doing. I would not agree. And it drove him nuts, literally, that I was just not going to take his side on this one. I said, "Nope, I do not agree with what you're doing here. This is not okay." So, but you've been married for how many years? You have a home together. I just wanted to fix this. I just needed this to be fixed. When he would drink, he would, have his little fits or whatever, get angry, but then he'd move on. And I kept waiting for him to move on like he used to, and he just wasn't. I mean, he had dug his heels in, and he was not going to agree with what they were doing. So, even after the counseling session, I could tell this was not going well at all. So we went home, and I started losing weight because I saw my whole life unraveling, and was scared to death of what was coming. Still wasn't thinking divorce, but I knew that something bad was coming. He and I were not getting along. We barely talked. I would go home after work and just dread going home, because then I would have to sit with him and listen to him rant and rave about whatever on this situation. It just was never ending. And I would say things like, I gotta go take my, I like to take my nap. So I would say, I gotta go take a nap. I'd go to bed early. I would do anything I could to avoid this confrontation. So that kind of started. This was November. By Christmas, okay, so he says, I don't want to spend Christmas with you. Well, prior to Christmas, like the week before Christmas, I said to him, my ex, because people at work were saying, are you safe? Are you okay? You're not, I was still working. I'm still doing my job. Most people didn't know, but Margaret, different people did know. I mean, I would confide. I had to talk to somebody. And talked a lot to my oldest son. He's my rock a lot of times. And I just said, I got to work this out. I'm okay. And people were saying, but are you safe? So that kept being asked of me. And I thought, well, so I sat down with him and said, do you ever think of hurting me? Is there anything, do you think you might hurt me? Because if I had packed my bags. I said, I've got some bags packed, and I'm getting nervous. I'm getting scared, and I want to know, do you think you're going to hurt me? Hoping that what his answer would be is, of course not. I would never hurt you. I mean, that's what normal, you'd think that someone would say. He looks at me and says, oh, you would never get to your car. I would shoot you first. And I'm like, oh my gosh. He thinks he's going to kill me. And I stood up and started crying. We're in the kitchen, and I'm just like, oh my God, I can't believe he would say that. And just hysterical. And he says to me, I'm going to the movies. I'm like, excuse me? I'm going to the movies. I'll be back later. And I said, you're leaving? And he said, yes. And I was just like, oh my gosh. So I called my son and I told him what his dad had said to me. And he said, you got to get out of there. That's not okay. So I went and stayed at their home. And my youngest came over, and I told them and the wives what my ex had said to me. And I was crying, but I made sure, even then I was saying, but I still want you to, he's your dad. I don't want this to ruin your relationship with your dad. Well, you don't tell their mother that and then expect it to go well. But that was... Anyway, so I spent the night. My ex did not, and went to work the next day. He came home from the movies, did not notice that my car was gone. And so he thought he got angry that I hadn't come home from work the next day, and called my son and said, your mom hasn't answered me. And he left me voicemails. Where are you? This isn't fair. Now, in our marriage, he had left angry at me maybe 3 times. No word from him for a weekend, right? And here I leave for one night, and he just came on. I'm going to call the cops. I can't believe you're doing this. Brian says you're there, And he just kept calling and calling, saying, you better not have told the boys what I said. And that is when his anger toward the in-laws became his anger toward me. Because in his mind, I had I made him say it. Can't make anybody say anything. I just asked, and that I coerced him into saying that yes, and that he just said it, out of anger. And that is the beginning of the end of our marriage. And I have much more to tell, but I'm going to break this up. So you'll have to come back for part 2. Anyway, so if you were going through a marriage that, you just don't know, I was so afraid. I'd lived to leave. I mean, I thought, where am I going to go? What am I going to do? I've invested my life in this home. We'd lived there for 30 years. This marriage, my family, I just thought, how am I going to start over? And it's a very frightening thing, but I did it, and I'm in a much better place now. And my hope is through doing these videos that not only am I being able to tell my story and get it out there and kind of get it off my chest. I've told it many times to different people, but to give you, if you're struggling in any situation, even, if you've lost a spouse, or it's so scary to start over, right? And I just hope that these videos will help you get through it. I have some things that we did prior to bank accounts and different things that just happened to fall into place that worked out later in this journey of mine. But I hope that by my telling this, it helps some people out there. So I know I've said I was going to do these videos, and I'm finally starting. And I'm also going to tell stories about just what it's like to be divorced and alone. A lot of it I love, but a lot of it's kind of hard too. So I'm just hoping to do kind of a journey then and now, and just reach out to people and share my story. And I know I'm not the only one that's struggled in life. There's been some people that have, because of what I've gone through, have told me their situations. And it's just unbelievable what we, especially women, I feel like, go through. We give our lives and dedicate ourselves to raising our family and being good wives and taking care of the home, and then to have things just snap like that. So that's really the biggest purpose of all of these videos. So I hope you can take something from this, or relate to it, or it helps you in some way. That inner strength, man, I from the beginning of this, I said to myself, because when I tell you what actually happened, and I never did return home, because I went home more than once after all this started, but that this would not change me. I would stay me. I was not going to let this make me a bitter, angry person, and I think I've succeeded in that, and pretty proud of myself for that. And that's what's kept me going. I just thought, nope, I have a family. I am blessed. Life will happen. I'm religious, but not hugely religious. But yeah, this was determined that this was not going to define the rest of my life. So I hope that this video has given you some little bit of insight into what happened, but stay tuned, because there's a lot more coming. All right, guys, take care. Bye-bye.